Have you ever had anybody ever say, you're not good enough to you? Have you ever heard that thought come to your mind, whether it was spoken by somebody or whether it was just it was implied, or your circumstances try to tell you that you're not good enough? Do you know what a lie that is? Consider this reality. You were never good enough. You weren't good enough. You never needed to be good enough. You didn't create yourself. God created you. And He said that it was good when He created you. Everything that He created, including man, He declared was good. It was only Satan that brought that thought to man, you're not good enough. Because remember, in the garden, Satan said to Eve, you know what, if you eat from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then you will be like God. Then you will be good enough. And so that false identity began to arise in Eve and Adam after they listened to that lie, because they were good enough. Because God created them. They didn't create themselves. And you can never make yourself good enough. You never need to be good enough. It's only that perpetual pattern of Satan's thoughts that go around in the minds of unbelievers and tries to attack those that are born again, are children of God. And it's the nature of the carnal man. It's the nature of Satan stuck into the mind of man that tells man that he always has to try and do something to be good enough, to achieve and be good enough, because he's not good enough. You know, on the other hand, the false idea can come is that, you know, you're a self-made person. Well, the truth, of course, is that you never made yourself. God created you. God created man. We don't give ourselves a heart. We don't give ourselves breath. I mean, come on, people. Let's get the victory over this and establish it once and for all. Because I know that the Lord is so faithfully bringing us into this full revelation that Jesus, after man believed that he wasn't good enough and they had to do stuff in order to be good enough, and believed that God was mad at him and that God was angry with him and that God had separated himself from man. After man was duped into believing that, Jesus came and he wiped all that junk out, took the power of Satan away from him, took all the authority Satan had away from him, stripped him completely, took that carnal nature and crucified it on the cross. And we died to all that stuff. But then he restored us to that reality that we were in the beginning good enough, because we were created by God and he said it was good, and we made in his image, and that was good. And it's not you, it's not your efforts that could give you anything to make you good enough. It's not your effort that could give you anything to give you value. Don't ever believe that lie anymore. Don't let people tell you, don't let the systems of this world, the patterns of this world, the ways of this world tell you that you are not good enough ever again. Now, let's look at the reality. The glory of God dwells in you. The presence of his very Spirit abides, stays, lives in you day and night. You radiate that very nature of God out of you. The rivers of living water aren't something that you got. The rivers of living water dwell in God, and he dwells in you. It was nothing that you did to earn that. You couldn't earn it. You see, you couldn't earn your creation. How stupid is that? Therefore, you cannot earn the fact that Christ has restored you to the original creation, where his presence and his glory dwells in you. You can't earn and be good enough for his love to flood your being. But his love flows in your being because he is in you. It's him. It's what he created in the beginning. It's what he redeemed on the cross. It's what he carries that is in us. It's his righteousness. It's his beauty. It's his wisdom. And you know, it's his healing that's in our hands. It's his healing that flows out of us. You know, we are in the very image and nature of God, and God is love. So we are love. God is healing. He said, I am the Lord that heals you. He heals. He can't do anything else. It's his very nature. That's the same. That's why people wanted to come and, you know, touch or be in Peter's shadow, because Peter was living in the reality and agreeing with that. He was in the reality of understanding that, you know, that the very nature of God, the healing nature of God, the nature and his presence of healing was in him and was around him. It's the same as with Jesus. People came up and touched him, and healing virtue flowed out of him. In the same way, healing is in us. The nature of God, the power of healing is in us, and that virtue flows out of us too. We are the healing to the nations because we carry the glory of God within us. We are the love of God to the nations because we carry the glory of his love within us. We are the peace to the nations. That's why the Lord said, go to a house or a place and release the peace that is in you, because we carry the Prince of Peace in us. We are royalty. We are the kings of the earth. And that is why we decree and declare things, and they will manifest. Just as our Father decrees and declares things, because his Spirit in us causes us to be as he is. And this is the absolute reality of the good news of the gospel. This is the very good news of the gospel, and it is so good. I pray that you will realize, you know, even your conscience, which may try and condemn you. You know, Paul said two things about the conscience. One, he said, if my conscience condemns me, God is greater. Because your conscience has been influenced by the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's been influenced by the nature of the carnal man and the law of do's and don'ts, of rights and wrongs. And the way that your conscience has developed over the years has influenced you. But when Christ is in you, even your conscience comes under the lordship of the Spirit of God, comes under the authority of the Spirit of God. And that's why Paul said, I don't follow my conscience. He said, my conscience could excuse me when I was guilty. My conscience could condemn me when I wasn't guilty. He said, it's not about my conscience. It's about the Holy Spirit. He said, now the Lord who dwells in me is the Lord over my conscience. And so if my conscience condemns me, God is greater. And if my conscience doesn't condemn me, that doesn't mean anything either, because God is my judge. And so he even realized that his conscience came under the lordship of the Holy Spirit. You know, when we realize that our conscience is to come under the lordship of the Holy Spirit, and we depend on the Holy Spirit to be our judge and to be our vindicator on all things, then even the thought that you're not good enough cannot have its place, because the Holy Spirit will tell you the truth, you see. And that's why the Holy Spirit in us is raising up the glorious reality of the fullness of Christ, of a sinless bride, of a beautiful, radiant bride, of glorious sons that reign and rule in heavenly realms day and night with God. Brothers and sisters, this is who we are. Don't let the devil lie to you anymore. Don't let him tell you you're not good enough. Shakaba.